Yesterday I talked about some comments that Daryl Meyer had made in a video, an 11-minute video dealing with the critique of preterism and some of the historical arguments he used, and they weren't very good. He hit a lot of things from his viewers, and maybe he's just not knowledgeable about this. The fact that he had all these notes written down, it's obvious he got these things from somewhere else. He had not really done a great deal of research on his own, you can make any position look really bad if you get to define the position for yourself and also give those definitions in the biblical texts as you want to do from your own perspective. But in this session, I want to deal with some of his biblical ideas and some passages. And one of the first places he starts is Daniel chapter 9. And Daniel chapter 9, he says, talks about I think he starts earlier. He talks about the book of Revelation. He says there's no way that the book of Revelation can refer to a preterist interpretation. There's no way that it refers to the first century prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. And what he does is he starts with Revelation chapter 9. He talks about the third of mankind will be killed. Now, why start in chapter 9 of a book? It seems to me that if you want to start with a book of prophecy, you want to start with the very first verse of the very first chapter. And let me read it to you. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his bondservants the things which must shortly take place. Verse 3, blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy and heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near. And then you go to Revelation chapter 21, verse 10, and the angel said to John, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. And see, what preterism teaches is that these time indicators are extremely important. It's one thing that Daryl Meyer never brings up. He never discusses anything related to the time texts. Now, if that's the case here, then we have to ask the question, why does he leave out the most important element in a preterist interpretation? That is the time indicators. The time indicators force any interpreter to see that the fulfillment has to take place within that particular time period, and he does not do that. Later near the end of his video, talks about how Daniel is told to seal up the prophecy until the time of the end. Well, why is it that John is told not to seal up the prophecy of the book of Revelation? Well, the reason for it is very clear. The book of Revelation was the opening of Daniel's prophecy. The book of Revelation is the opening of the books, so to speak. Why is that? Because the time is near, for these things must shortly come to pass. Shortly come to pass for whom? Shortly come to pass for its first readers. Now, we know that the book of Revelation was written prior to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. How do we know this? There are a number of internal marks that tell us this. Certainly Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. And there was given to John a measuring rod like a staff, and someone said, rise and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it. Well, the temple was destroyed in AD 70, and of course someone like Daryl Meyer would say, oh, this is talking about a rebuilt temple. The book of Revelation was really written after the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. There isn't a single verse in the New Testament that says anything about a rebuilt temple. The next verse, and leave out the court which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they will tread underfoot the holy city for 42 months. And he makes this odd statement. He says that this did not happen in AD 70. He claims that the Romans only destroyed Jerusalem. They did not occupy it. I'm thinking, how do you destroy a city unless you first occupy it? Rome had occupied Jerusalem a long time before and continued to occupy it a long time after. In fact, there was kind of a mopping up operation in AD 73 at Masada. They had occupied the city. This is just an unbelievable statement. So in Daniel 9 is where he starts, though, and he talks about a third of men killed. He says that never happened. Well, again, the book of Revelation is a book about a local judgment. And how do we know this? Is because of Revelation chapter 3, verse 10. This is the church at Philadelphia. Because you have kept the word of my perseverance, I also will keep you from the hour of testing, that hour which is about to come upon the inhabited earth, the Roman Empire, if you will, to test those who dwell upon the land. Now, the land here is the land of Israel. Now, most translations, of course, have earth. And then a translation of oikomene, the Greek word oikomene, they'll have whole world. But that word is, the word oikomene in Greek is for a local area, not a worldwide area. And so what is being described here, since the temple is being described in Revelation chapter 11, and this is a book about Israel, this is a book about the church, this is a book about Israel. This isn't talking about some future position in time. What we find here is that the third of the mankind who was killed, it was something that was local. And sure enough, when you study Josephus, you'll know that that's exactly what happened. Some say hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed. Certainly a third of the population of Israel was destroyed. Many others were taken off into captivity. So when you study the history of the period, you have to ask yourself the question, this book fits that particular period of time. It does not deal with some future entity here. Then he goes to Revelation chapter 17, and he talks about the whore Babylon as referring to Rome and not referring to first century Israel. And he quotes here verse 9, "Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come, and when he comes he must remain a little while." And so this king, the 6th king is, that is, this 6th king was alive when the book of Revelation was written. So this can't be referring to some distant period of time. Then he says here, this 7 mountains or the 7 hills here most assuredly refers to Rome. Well, I believe it refers to Rome as well. But who's the woman? The woman sits on the 7 hills. This is, in fact, Israel. Israel is the woman. She is the adulterous woman who goes after the nations. This, to be somewhat delicate here, this is a kind of a sexual thing. This is adultery with the nations. She's having adultery, committing adultery with Rome, because this is Israel over against the church in the first century. That's what Revelation chapter 13 is all about. Revelation 13 is about 2 beasts. There's a land beast and a sea beast. The land beast is Israel, the sea beast is Rome, and they collude with one another in order to destroy the bride of Christ. And David Chilton, Ken Gentry go into this in great detail. So this, I'm sorry, but Darrell Meyer does not know really much about preterist eschatology. He tries to find the Antichrist in Daniel chapter 9. There is no Antichrist mentioned in Daniel chapter 9. In fact, you won't even find the word Antichrist in the book of Revelation. It's Jesus who confirms covenants. Antichrist, Satan doesn't confirm any covenant. He goes to Matthew chapter 24, verse 34. Never at all does he understand the meaning of this generation, how it's used in the Gospels. The Gospel account always uses this generation as referring to the generation to whom Jesus is speaking. He, like so many others, have said that the Olivet Discourse refers to the generation that sees these signs. That's fine if he wants to take that position, but that is the position, that is the first century position. Notice what it says in verse 32. "Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. Even so, you too, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near, right at the door." So, I'm sorry, but Darrell Meyer really does not understand preterism. If he wants an understanding of this, he needs to get my book, Last Days Madness.